Coming to paperback and e-readers in 2021, John Haynes, Taking Care of Business. The man who rules the world breaks on a brand new partner to help him take care of business in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, Taking Care of Business in 2021 at online booksellers everywhere. I was on actor Dondra T. Whitfield's Instagram where he was discussing a woman in Harlem on St. Nicholas Avenue who was attacked and robbed in a liquor store after rejecting men's advances in the store. And your Dondra T. Whitfield was presenting this as an example of dysfunctional male behavior, like he talks about in his book, Male versus Man. And after doing my own research on the incident that took place in Harlem where this woman was attacked and robbed after rejecting these men's advances, I could see how this was a textbook thirsty male behavior, like I talk about in my book, Stop Simping, Why Men Don't Need Finance to Get Romance. And I also talked about in a recent live stream I did called Deconstructing the Thirsty Male. And as I further took a critical examination of these males' behavior, it fit the pattern and profile for what I talk about as related to beta males in my book, The Man Crisis. And as I was looking at this incident, I could agree with your Dondra T. Whitfield that this is dysfunctional male behavior. And sadly, it is dysfunctional male behavior I saw a lot of as I was growing up in the South Bronx. Now, growing up in the South Bronx, I grew up around a lot of extremely dysfunctional Black and Hispanic males. And a lot of these males, whenever they saw a girl who had a look that they liked, they would try to rush up on her and try to talk to her. And these males, because they were thirsty males, they were caught up in their emotions. And because they were caught up in their emotions, they didn't understand that their thirsty approach was turning that woman off. And they didn't understand that their approaching that woman in that way really wasn't a good look. Now, your thirsty male, he thinks that whenever he sees a woman, he should just rush up to her and start making advances. And that's because he, one, doesn't have any home training from his mother on how to treat women, and two, he does not have male life skills on how to approach women by his father. And your thirsty male, he again rushes up to this woman thinking that if he just goes up to her, it's going to be seen as positive. But what he doesn't understand is him rushing up to her is seen as negative because this woman, one, doesn't know who he is, and two, he's coming at her in an extremely dysfunctional fashion because he's rushing up to her filled with all of this emotion. And this is, again, not a good look for this guy. And as these guys do this, they then hear the woman go out and reject their advances. And what happens is these guys, on getting rejected, they go berserk. And that's what I saw happen a lot of when I was in junior high school and high school. And I remember when a family member told me about an incident where she was going to school and a girl turned one of these guys down, and he threw a bottle at her and almost hurt this girl. So this has been going on, sadly, for over 30 years. And what's troubling is that none of these males learned the proper male life skills on, one, how to approach a girl or a woman, and two, how to deal with rejection. Now, learning how to deal with rejection is something a boy has to learn early on from his mother and his father, and it's a life skill that will help him survive in this world. Because if you don't know how to deal with rejection, you're not going to be able to function well in society, because in the real world, you're going to have to hear a lot of no in order to get to yes, and you have to know how to take the no's people tell you when you get out here in the real world. And ever since I was 11, 12 years old, and I started to express interest in girls, I had to learn how to take no for an answer. And a lot of guys out here, especially the thirsty guys who are caught up in their emotions, they live in a rose colored reality where they build fantasies around these girls. And when they build these fantasies around these girls, they're expecting an easy yes. And usually, these guys, whenever a girl says no to them, that's when they start to lose it. But a man who has been raised with a father and male figures, he has been taught early on that he should be prepared to hear the word no, and he should be prepared to go on with his life after hearing the word no. And this is something, again, I learned way back when I was 11, 12 years old, and I had crushes on girls and interest in girls. And if they would just say no, I would just brush it off and move on. Yes, you might hurt for a minute if you crush on a girl here or there, especially early on, but eventually you just learn to brush it off and get on with your day. And in a week or two or a couple of days later, you're going to get on with your life, and you're not going to take it personal, because you understand that her saying no to you is not a bad thing. Her saying no to you is a good thing, because this means that, yes, she said she's not interested, but that leaves me open to go out here and interact with someone who will be interested in having interest in me. But when you're a thirsty guy, all you do is fixate on the fantasy you have about a woman. And thirsty males, they fixate on the fantasy they have about a woman, and they go out here and they don't really want the woman, they want the fantasy they want to have with the woman. So these males, what happened with them is they wanted to make an advance on this woman, and she said no. And then after she said no, they got angry, and then they felt justified in attacking this woman. That's one of the sick behaviors that your male participates in, because, again, he does not see the woman as a person with thoughts and feelings of her own. No, the thirsty male sees the woman as a player in his fantasies, and now that she's not going to participate as a player in his fantasies, he sees her as less than a person, and believes that it's in his right to do harm to her. And this frame of thinking is something a lot of males have, because these males have not been taught how to see another person as having value to their life, or a person who has the right to choose who they decide to interact with. So your thirsty male, everything is all about him, and everything is all about his rose-colored, twisted perception of reality. So he felt that he and his friends thought it was in their rights to beat and rob this and attack this woman after they rejected their advances. And this is par for the course when it comes down to your dysfunctional, thirsty male. Now, a man in the exact same situation, he is not going to take rejection like that. No, a man, when he is rejected, he is just going to, while he might sting a little or feel a little bad, he will navigate through his emotions, and he will be able to say, yes, I have these feelings, but I'm not going to act in a way that is destructive to me. So as I have been rejected over the years by different women, I just learned, again, to brush it off and go on with my day, and to see it again as a positive, because this means that I'm not taking time out of my life to continue to think about someone who isn't interested in me, and now I can focus on thinking about someone who actually is interested in me. Unfortunately, your male doesn't think that way. Your male, all he thinks about is fulfilling a fantasy, and because he doesn't see people as people, but a man sees the value of another person, and because he sees the value of another person like he sees value in himself, he is going to be able to take that rejection and go on with his life. And rejection, again, is something every boy has to start dealing with in the early stages of adolescence. Rejection is a part of life, and you're going to have to hear a lot of no to get to yes, and you're going to have to take those no's and go on with your life. And that's something I've had to do over the last 25 years as a writer. I've gotten over 400 rejections for novels like A Recipe for Success, 500 rejections for novels like Temptation of John Haynes, and countless rejections for other books like All About Marilyn. And I learned over time to be able to brush those rejections off and keep persevering, because I know that eventually I'm going to deal with people who want to support my work. So I knew how to deal with it there, and I also knew how to deal with it in the job market, where I had to deal with rejections for over 10 years. So I know how to take those rejections, and these days I have been rejected so many times that I practically, when I hear somebody's not interested, it doesn't even faze me anymore. And what happens with a lot of males is they never develop that thick skin to deal with rejection, because they're always expecting a yes, because a lot of them live in a rose-colored reality where they're expecting people to keep saying yes to them, but that's not how it works in the real world. No, in the real world, men have to deal with rejection, and men have to have the resolve to keep persevering after a rejection. And when a man can sit there and take a woman saying no to them, that shows that that man has extremely thick skin. And an extremely thick-skinned man who can take rejection, that is a man who will get lots of respect from both men and women, because that man has the discipline and the resolve to be able to stand up in the face of adversity. And that ability to stand up in the face of adversity, that's something many people will respect, because it shows something about that man's character. Now, these males, as I see it, they really showed how little character they had from the beginning of this incident, because only a thirsty male who is caught up in his feelings of lust is going to go and make an advance on a complete stranger inside of a liquor store. And that kind of guy who does that does not have much character as a man, because here you are inside of this liquor store where this woman is buying some alcoholic beverages, and it really looks weak when you do stuff like that. A man of character, he's not going to sit here and throw out some thirsty lines at a woman inside of a store, because he knows that's really looking raggedy as related to him. And when he's out here trying to put up an image for himself, he knows that looks really raggedy. I mean, there are chance encounters where people meet each other, like they're talking about something in common in the store, or the guy's explaining something about a said product and the woman becomes interested. That's a different thing, because that's all about connection. But some lames coming into a store making a thirsty comment towards a female, that really is not a good look for a man, because a man knows that making those thirsty comments like that, it really shows how weak he is, and it makes for a very, very poor first impression on these women out here. It really makes you look like a complete lame when you're out here making these thirsty comments and making these clumsy advances inside of a store. And it looks even worse when you go out here and put hands on a woman after she says no to you. It really says that these males have no real character at all, and that these males have no home training, and they have no male life skills. And because a man, again, he's not even going to try to make an advance like that, because he knows that that's thirsty behavior, and it's not a good look for him. And a man of character, he's not going to do that, because he wants to treat this woman with the same respect he would want for himself. So he's not going to step to her in that fashion, because he knows that's just not how a man carries himself in a situation. Now, if she wants to talk about a certain product in the store and he's familiar with that product and they're having a conversation, that's a different story, because she initiated a conversation. You guys are having a connection. But a thirsty dude, this is not about a connection for him. This is about him being emotional. This is about him being out of control. And this guy is not fit for a relationship, because when you're dealing with a male, he lacks the discipline and self-control. And that is shown to us when you see this male inside of a store making advances on random women in a store. This is a male who has not been taught discipline. This is a male who has not been taught self-control. This is a male who has not been taught how to work through his emotions or carry and conduct himself in a fashion where he is seen as a respectable man. Now, a respectable man will walk into said store, make his purchase, and be about his way. And he's not going to be sitting inside of some store trying to pick up women, because, again, a man is about his business, and only a dysfunctional, backwards male will be in a place like a liquor store looking to pick up women with thirsty comments, because he thinks this approach, it's going to work maybe on some chicken heads here or there, but on true to the game women, it does not work, because this male doesn't see how he looks. He doesn't understand that when you're inside of somebody else's business making thirsty comments at women in stores, you look really bad. You look like a clown, and you look like somebody that no one needs to take seriously. And in the cases of these guys, they desperately need a father or other male figures that are older like myself to pull said individuals to the side and let them know that the way they're behaving is not a good look, and this is not the way a man carries and conducts himself. And this is why I go out of my way to do live streams like I did last Friday called Deconstructing the Thirsty Male, because I know that there are lots of these males still out here, because a lot of those guys who grew up in my junior high and high school days, they went out here and they had children. They went out here and were not fathers to their sons. And that's why we have more of these males running out here. And we have so many men in crisis, because these males were not taught the foundations of manhood, and they weren't taught the skills they would need to survive in the world. Now, if you want to learn more about dysfunctional males, you can pick up Dondra T. Whitfield's Male vs. Man on Amazon.com. And if you want to learn why thirsty males participate in dysfunctional behaviors like making advances towards women in places like liquor stores, you can pick up my book, Stop Simping, Why Men Don't Need Finance to Get Romance, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. And if you want to learn more about dysfunctional males and what makes a male and a dysfunctional male at that, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find it on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to paperback and e-readers this April, Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door must take on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess in paperback and e-readers this April.